你嘅夢想係？
我想
If I was younger.
夢想唔好玩啦！
我啲夢想好多嘅，
我做個好爸爸。
抌低晒所有嘢，然後去2年旅行。
One day I wanted to be an astronaut, next day I wanted to be an actor, then I wanted to be a professor.
I wanted to be a doctor because everyone said they wanted to be a doctor.
做足球員咯！
我想做廚師啊，
溜冰教練，做百萬富翁。
I'm like open a small shop with my friends.
有機會嘅。
你如果想做有得做啦，真係啊！
28.
你一定要問到呢度。
28 is quite a long way to go.
28，我今年29啦。
我希望我嫁咗得唔得？
I want to be a lawyer.
我諗我會早啲辭咗份政府工，然後去旅行咯。
我係想去讀下書嘅。
到28歲嘅時候，我應該同好多後生過我嘅人一齊做緊嘢。
I will be an influencer, and I'll be able to make a difference in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Peter Mathieson.
Son, Shang Wu Hao. Good morning, everybody. 歡迎大家嚟到香港大學。歡迎來到香港大學。The rest will be in English. So it's my very great pleasure to welcome everybody to this event. It's fantastic to see the Grand Hall so full. I'm sorry if you've had difficulty finding a seat. We are oversubscribed, and I hope that that represents the fact that there's a great deal of interest and energy at the University of Hong Kong in the subject of today, entrepreneurship, innovation, how to capitalize on your dreams. Many successful dreams start in university days. I hope maybe some of you in the room have already had a great idea and you're here to understand how to develop that idea. Are you the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Pony Ma? By the end of today, we hope to have given you more information, more advice, more inspiration, more leadership, and more ideas about how to make your dreams come true. The need for Hong Kong to capitalize on the energy, intelligence, and capacity for hard work of its people, of its students, of its industries has never been more apparent, and we're seeing a great deal of energy behind entrepreneurship and innovation in Hong Kong today. And so the timing of this event is no accident. It's deliberately timed to coincide with this energy and to try and harness the University of Hong Kong's power in supporting entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship in its simplest sense means starting a business. More significantly, entrepreneurship means having the vision, the strength of purpose, and the courage to take your dreams and see them through to reality. It's okay to dream. We want you to dream. It's also okay to fail, as long as from failure you learn lessons and you come back stronger so that you're less likely to fail next time. So the aim of today is to encourage you to follow your dreams, to see your dreams through to success, to learn from others around you. We've invited a fabulous lineup of 67 speakers who will share with you their successes and failures, probably particularly their successes, and you will be able to learn from their experience. So I'm very grateful to them for giving up their time to share with you today, and I'm very grateful to you for coming. I hope it's a fantastic day. If a year from now you're coming back and telling us that today was helpful and that your ideas have moved on and you've learned more about how to see your dreams through to success, then we will have achieved something very significant. Today will not be a one-off event. This is not just a single episode in the history of entrepreneurship here at the University of Hong Kong. This will be the start of a series of events which I hope will go on for many years and see success coming to many of you in the audience. So that's all I want to say. Thank you for coming. Please dream on.
Thank you very much, President. And now, let's welcome the first panel to the stage.
Good morning, Dreamcatchers. Welcome to the hall. Please sit. It's amazing to see you at 10 o'clock on Sunday this morning. We were betting how many would turn up, but we got a full house. So a round of applause for all of you, for your spirit. Just a very quick introduction to the very charming gentleman next to me. Jason of Cherrypicks, and he's the industry icon, so many of you have come for him. Zhang Leung, he's of the charity of Hong Kong Jockey Club, and he has many social enterprises to his credit, including Run Our City, Chin Seng Gai Ma. But what is important also is he's now holding a 3.6 billion budget every year to give away. 36 億. And then Antony, I think many of you know him, and he's been in the newspapers every now and then, good or bad. CEO of Nan Fung, and he's also our former financial secretary. So with that, we'll start. If I were 28, but what we're really interested to know is, what did they do when they were 28? Were they as good as they would tell us they are? The good thing is, Jason has done a lot of homework, so he will start the lesson by telling us what he was like when he was 28, and what he would propose you do when you're 28. So over to you, Jason.
Thank you. President, Professor Tsui, illuminating speakers, Dreamcatchers, good morning. It's very encouraging to see entrepreneurial minds in one room on a Sunday morning. And what I can tell you is what I did when I was 28, and if I were 28 now, what would I do? Actually, not much of a difference. I'm going to give several secrets away, but hopefully that would help you a lot. I am extremely privileged because there are a lot of successful entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. I'm a very humble nobody. But I was very happy when I was invited to share, because I love to talk about my failures, love to talk about my stories, so that people get out of it, so that we all become stronger. Later, after being invited, I found out the real reason of me in this panel. I was asked to do some homework. It was all planned, and I was asked to talk about my case so that the other speakers can take it apart. But since they gave me the stage, I'm going to shoot a couple of questions to them, and hopefully that would be a privilege that a prerogative that I have after sharing my story. So with no further ado, I'd like to give you a couple of photos when I was 28. What did I do? Well, this was the second photo. There is a date. Well, this was the first one. When I was 28, I was actually hacking away with a team of great people, talents. And that was in year 2000. Who said Hong Kong has no talent? Even back then, I managed to find a group of fantastic individuals who are passionate about a shared vision, a dream, and they all want to change Hong Kong or the world. I think a lot of talents, including myself at that time. I had 7 years at Deloitte Consulting, professionals, and I quit and I jumped into the startup world. A lot of talents in Hong Kong, they are just disguised as bankers. They are just disguised as professionals, medical professionals, lawyers. They are disguised. We have a lot of talents. Don't get people brainwash you, okay? This is a garage-size office in Sheung Wan on 12th floor. Garage size. We like to think about hacking, garage, all of these things, right? And we did not know what would have been ahead of us. In fact, the smile that you saw on our face tell you that they were so naive. Next, please. We had a ritual to become one of us. At Cherrypicks, we call ourselves Charians. This is almost like a cult. No different from what you have heard in the other part of the world, in the US, in Apple, for example. Charians, face painting is the ritual that we went through in order to become one of us. We try to build a strong team. We try to do something, build a dream, make it big. If you ask me, if I were 28 today, what would I do? Well, 15 years ago, when there were no Hong Kong startup ecosystem, I made that choice to go from corporate to startup. Today, it would be an even easier choice to make that jump. But I have more choices now, all related to entrepreneurial ventures. I have a few options in mind, and I would love you to help me choose. The first option, of course, I can always learn a lot. Next slide, please. By working with this guy, he's the king of the internet. And I heard that he's going to speak this afternoon, and that's the reason why there are so many people today. Oh, that's great. What can I do? I'm trained an engineer, so I can be a product, a technical, or a business development person. Maybe I can do the global market for him. But his organization is so big, I won't be too close to him. I cannot learn directly from him. Maybe it's an attractive but not so good option. After all, even if I want to, he may not be crazy enough to hire me. Second option, I'm a big fan of Star Trek. If you have seen some footage lately, there was a droid flying over Fuzhou, and they discovered this office. This is a campus of my parent company, NetDragon. It is in the form properly licensed, not pirated. Star Trek. So if you're a big fan, you can fulfill one of your dreams. You work in Star Trek. There are many, many bells and whistles and amazing stuff that will open your eyes. You don't have to look too far. You don't have to go to Israel or US. China is a place of innovation. Understand it before you comment or have a preconception. So Mr. DJ Lee could be an option. Third, well, what about some social innovation? There's a guy called Daniel Epstein. He is head of an institute called Unreasonable Institute. Well, basically he said life is short. There's no reason why you can't be unreasonable. And the world evolves around unreasonable people, especially in social innovation. I'm going to direct a question to Leong Cheung about that. If you're unreasonable, you are cut for social innovation because very tough problems to solve, and sometimes logical thinking, normal business model cannot get the solution. The other, Iron Man of today, Elon Musk. Elon Musk doesn't entertain small ideas. His project, the next one, after the electric car and building batteries for home, is putting people on Mars. I'd like to be part of that. But when I think about all these options, I go back to my small brain by thinking about a big world. Next slide, please. My hands are small, but they are mine. What about building my own dream? Whether that be a career in professional industry, something that change a corporate, innovation that make a difference, or my own business. Perhaps this is something that I should do. And when it comes to dream, it's not about one person, it's about a team. So I have to get a group of people. These people, not measured by competence, they are measured by your ability to work with them so that when tough time comes, they're still with you. Airbnb, Instagram, these great companies did not start off with the business that they are doing today. They pivot, change, and became great. How do I find a team that build a dream, make it big? There were two things that make me think that today is the best time to start. Number one, our country, China, has announced policy of Internet Plus, which means that the Internet era, the BAT of the world are dominant, but there's a second wave of Internet converging with normal industry or traditional industries that will become the focus for the next 5-10 years. There's a vision for 2025, there's a vision for 2045. This is Internet Plus era, online to offline. I, in the mobile technology industry, is the best position to tap into that. Why don't we focus there? The world has a budding startup culture. Hong Kong ecosystem is blossoming like a rainforest everywhere. I have this last advice, if I may. Life is short. This is the best time, and there's no other better time to start. But if you do want to start your business or become an entrepreneur, be prepared for the following. China market, you have to enter. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how. Think global. There's no Hong Kong startup. You are starting in Hong Kong, but you are doing one market, global market. And also, embrace failure. Understand what is fail fast, fail big, and fail forward. I had all three, and I can spend hours talking about that. I failed before anyone, faster than anyone. I failed before I started. And huge failure. I held my team. I looked myself in the mirror. I still believe in the vision. And I believe that continuing perseverance will make me happy. And last but not least, pivot and persevere. If you can go from failure to failure without losing passion, I think you're successful already. And that would be a life experience that you would not trade for anything else. That's priceless. Now, that's my little humble sharing. If I were 28, I will leave you to think and give me some advice, maybe offline, about what I should choose. The choice is obvious for me, okay? Now, maybe, if I may, get your permission to direct a few questions back to the fellow illuminating speakers.
Yeah, please sit.
Okay. I'd like to ask Antony first. I'll give you a choice, 2 questions. Number 1, if Hong Kong is a startup, how would you run it? That includes firing people, okay? Or, arguably more difficult question, how many girlfriends did you have when you were 28? Looks like he's going to be on the news tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll pass the mic to, I'm afraid if I let him speak more, we'll get into trouble. So I'll pass the mic to Zhang Leung first. Antony needs some time to calm down.
And to count the number of girlfriends.
I need some time to calm down. Well, I can't beat that performance. So Jason, very good, nice job. I'll be very quick. I did 2 things when I was 28. So I remember about 3 months before I was 28, I came back from US. I had a great idea of an internet startup. So I talked to many of my friends. So at the end, I talked to one of my very best friends from high school over the phone. So I said, you know what, I had this great idea, and blah, 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 and we talked for like an hour or 2. And then at the end, he said, wow, that sounds like an interesting idea. Let me think about it. And then the next day, he called me from Beijing. So he was then, working in Beijing. And he said, Zhang Leung, I quit my job this morning. So I said, oh. I haven't quit mine. So that's practically how I started, my venture in a startup. It was an internet startup as well. At the peak, we had an office in Beijing, Shanghai, and also Hong Kong. It didn't go very long, so we kind of sold it to another company in 2000. Now that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did when I was 28 was I got married.
Not girlfriends. He got married.
Not girlfriends. And it's the same girl I'm still marrying to. So.
What a startup. What a startup.
So that's what I did in 28. You know what? When you're 28, there's many things you can do. Now, what if I were 28? I actually think I am still 28. It's a hard question. I can't answer. But But 2 years ago, when I was, whatever, think of it, 28. So 2 years ago, I was with a very comfortable finance job. I was in private equity field, just like Antony previously. And then I had this great idea about a social enterprise. So again, I took the same route. I talked to people, and one day I had lunch with this lady who used to work for me, in another company. So I said, wow, you know what? We have this great idea, changing the world. And we had lunch. It all went very well. And of course, the next day she called me. And she said, hey, Leon, I quit my job. So, there's nothing I could do but to quit mine as well, just like the previous time. So that's how I started, my social enterprise. I think the critical thing is, when you have the spirit of entrepreneurship, I believe is wherever you are in your life stage, whatever position you are doing, whether it's in a big company or a startup company, you can always apply that spirit of entrepreneurship to whatever you do. And I think that's the beauty of it, because it gets you excited. It's a lot of fun. And I must say, it's sometimes also quite fun to see other people quit their job. So with that, I pass to Antony.
Thank you, John. Your social enterprise is called Run the City.
It's called Run Our City.
Run Our City, okay. I know you are keen to start talking about running our city. So here you go.
Well, good morning. It's glad to be with all of you. All of you at least are thinking or believing that you are 28. I believe the same thing, even though that was 35 years ago. Well, actually, I quite liked our former colleague, Margaret Chen. She's now the head of the WHO, World Health Organization. She redefined youth as anybody 65 or younger. So in that sense, I'm still young. But I believe the reason why I'm here, and besides knowing Bernadette, is that unlike the previous two speakers, I worked when I was 28 in a more conventional profession. I was in a bank, a fairly large bank. I was in Singapore. I was the head of the foreign exchange and money market in Singapore. And at that point of time, Singapore's market was larger than Hong Kong. But besides just making a difference or being different from the other two speakers, maybe the reason why Bernadette asked me to speak here is because I was in the investment industry. I was in private equity, as Leong just said. But recently, I developed an interest in earlier stage investing. In Nan Fung, a bit of advertisement, but for those of you that are staying on, later on in the afternoon, we are going to introduce to you an incubator that we are kind of building. It's called the Mills. It will focus on startups that relate to textile or fashion, and we'll provide the money and we'll have all the value added. So do stay behind and listen to that idea. And we are going to do our first pitch day in July. So for those of you that has anything to do with textile or fashion, and I include wearables as fashion, do appear in on the pitch day, and hopefully you have some fun and we'll be able to select some interesting ventures too. But besides that, we also have invested in earlier stage funds, including one that is based in Israel. I like Israel a lot because it is a country that's remarkable. With only 8 million people, they have so many great technology, many startups. Many of those can actually be brought back to our market, which is the China market, and be extremely profitable. So recently I've been kind of talking to a lot of startup ventures, but more so I've also been asked by many young people whether they actually should start their business, or kind of go and work in the more boring industries such as financial services. And maybe this is what I would share with you. I mean, my answer to them when I'm asked by these young people, and sometimes not so young people, is that you have to consider a few things. It's very generic, but maybe it's useful to some. First, ask yourself whether you really have the passion to do it. If you don't have the passion to start up or do anything, you will not be successful. Secondly, whether you have the personality, because it takes a very different personality, such as what Jason said. I mean, you actually have to be not afraid of losing. Now, not that we all like losing, but in startup, chances are you will lose. The success rate of starting a business, I believe, is less than 1%. I think Jason told me once that, to be exact, it's actually 0.6 of 1%. So it's 0.6%, so prepare to lose. But the important thing, as Jason said, is you lose fast, you lose big, and you lose forward. You mean you fall forward instead of falling backward. Because if you fall backwards, you cannot get up. The important thing is after a few failures, and hopefully you will not repeat the same mistakes again, then you learn how to be successful. And obviously, like choosing any career, you have to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. But besides that, one has to also, whether you are 28 or 68, you have to keep learning. And the starting point of learning is to keep a certain degree of curiosity and keep asking questions. I was in Israel only 3 weeks ago, and I had a conversation with the president of the Tel Aviv University, and we talked about why the Jewish people is so successful. And obviously he was modest. He said, no, we are not that much more clever than you Chinese. But he said maybe the culture is a little bit different. And it somehow struck a chord in me because I have, as you may know, young children. My eldest is only 12, my youngest is 7. But the president of this university, the Tel Aviv University, said, look, when the child comes back, the question that we ask him or her is not whether you have behaved in school or what you have learned in school, but they ask, have you asked a question in school? Have you participated in the class discussion? Immediately, I flash back to our own case, because in Hong Kong, if the student asks too many questions, chances are the teacher would reprimand him or her for disrupting the class. The second thing that the president of the Tel Aviv University said is, we Jewish people has a firm belief that everything can be improved. So they are on a quest to improve everything that they see. And I believe this sense of curiosity and the belief that you can change things for the better is very important, whether you are really starting a business or whether you are kind of doing anything conventional, including running Hong Kong. And the other thing that I believe anybody in the business, and especially true in startup, is you know your competition. You have to keep watching whether they're competitors, not just in the same field, but in other fields that may actually end up disrupting your industry. And to a certain extent, that is why in Nan Fung, I've been asking my colleagues to kind of pay attention to high tech, because IT, life sciences, will eventually disrupt our traditional industry, including property development. And so keep an eye on your competitor, but most importantly, keep an eye on your customer. A lot of people come to me and say, Antony, I've got this great technology, please invest in me. But if it's technology-based, chances are you're too inwardly looking. You look at yourself. What we should do, especially in Hong Kong, when kind of basic research is not really the strongest in the world, is that you focus on your customer. You focus on a problem and think about how to solve it. If you can solve an old problem by a better method, that already is innovation. And that would probably give you a better chance of success, because you're really focusing on the customer's need rather than on yourself. And so that is really what I want to share with you. To answer the question directly, what would I do if I were 28? I'll probably, given my background as not a science person because I study something called economics, and I'm not sure whether it's science. Because it changes all the time. Like, one of the things that we learned when we were in school, the law of marginal return, in the internet world, it actually would not apply. So since I do not come from a science background and has a long history in finance, maybe what I will focus on is financial technology called fintech. And chances are I will go to China, as Jason said, because that is where the market is, that's where the innovation is. And there is also one of the largest markets in the world. So I'll go to China, probably either start a business myself or follow one of the more successful entrepreneurs there to see what we can do in the fintech area. And I've been grateful that for the last 10 years, and even today, I'm advising a fintech company in China, so I do know a lot, or a little bit about what's going on there. But with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Jason, Antony didn't quite answer your questions, but that's okay. Jason did a great job introducing us to what he could possibly be doing. I heard 3 words from these gentlemen. 1, quit your job. And I think I might have to think about it. And, 2 at least, 2 amongst them are good bosses. The second thing is China. And the third thing is disruptive. Now, with that, I will open to the floor, and this is now your chance to challenge them. We'll do it this way. There will be 2 mics on the aisles, and you are welcome to come up and line up. 30 seconds, please. Introduce yourself and identify yourself. No advertising. We will take 3 questions, and then they will respond, and then we'll take a second round.
Can we ask the organizer to turn up the lights, because I don't want to be in the bright and you're in the dark.
They will. Now, the first thing is, you also talked about failures while they're waiting. I think 2 out of 3 have failed miserably before. So, yeah. Maybe while they're queuing up, 1 minute for your failure.
Well, failure is, as the Chinese said, is the best teacher. And failing, the most important thing is that you fail forward. But what it taught me the most is really humility. Because I was relatively successful when I was younger. And I thought that what I thought and what I did was always right. And obviously, even though directionally it was right, I did not pay attention to many things, including the reaction of the recipient. And so I thought that the failure was the best lesson that God has given me, and that is to let me learn humility, and I'm still learning it.
Yeah, humility, and Antony is still learning it. Okay, we'll take the first question from this gentleman.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much, speakers. Very enlightening speech. My name is Edmund, and actually I have been an employee for 9 years, and since this year, I quit my job and started my own small business in education. I have 2 questions, actually. Please allow me. I'd like to get some tips on how to really move on. Because just now, I heard a bit of sound bites on perseverance and also pivoting. So I would like to get your experience on how do you know at which point I should kind of give up my previous idea and pivot and move on. So the balance, how to get it right. And my second question is around choosing ideas, because I'm sure you gentlemen have so much exposure to different aspects in the business side. You must have a lot of dreams and ideas. At the end of the day, how do you assess which one to go for? And so to really get the chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Critical points. Over here, your question, please.
Oh, hi, my name is Eileen, and I'm a third-year PhD candidate at Hong Kong U Interdisciplinary Architecture and Early Childhood Education. When I was really appreciate what you mentioned, actually, when I was 28, I filed a bankruptcy. Since I started my company when I was 27. And since then, I beat up myself, and I ended up in PhD program because I thought, okay, let's just go the conventional way. So my questions is more about China, because everybody knows China is a big market. First question, how to tackle corruption. Second question, how to tackle the state enterprise. I mean, state own enterprise, something like that.
Okay, we got big questions, so I'm going to pause here and pass back to you.
I would give it a try first,
Sure.
because I think perseverance of pivoting, that was the crime that I committed, on that page. I think failing is one thing. Oh, by the way, before I say that, the advocacy here is not asking everybody to quit your jobs, okay? The advocacy is actually asking everybody to search for your dreams, have a dreams, then quit your job, okay?
Good logic.
Or have somebody like Leong Cheung and tell him that I quit, then you jump. Okay, let me go back to perseverance and pivoting. I think failing is one thing. I would not talk more about it. I think Antony talked very well on fail fast, fail big, and fail forward. But the impetus of continuing and making the decision of when this failure is really the time to call it quit or persevere, all right? I have my own personal opinion, my own views. It might not be entirely right for everyone. Okay, I would ask myself 3 questions. The first is that failure fundamentally challenge my vision, my dream, and my mission? That perfectly invalidated? If that's the case, then I should quit. Right? Very logical, rational thinking. If that's not, then what I originally believed still valid, then I should continue. The second, look yourself in the mirror. You want to continue because you want to do a startup or because you want to solve a problem? Now, if it is the latter, then I think you are still, sane. Otherwise, if you just want to do a startup and you're a little bit lost, I'm afraid. Third, ask yourself, what would make you happy? You don't have a lot of opportunities to be 28. Yeah, so those are...
Good answer.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think actually, if I may answer both questions, so including the corruption and state-owned enterprise. To me, environment is one thing, but your personal value is probably the most critical thing. Whether you're doing a startup, whether you're dealing with situations whereby there potentially may be corruption, or you're dealing with a large bureaucracy. I think I really like what Jason just said. The second point is really when you come back to your own value. What are you doing? And why are you doing it? Are you doing it for the money? Are you doing it for the ride? Or do you have a higher purpose? Or do you have a sort of more complex social issues that you like to solve? So I think that is, to me anyway, is the most critical thing.
Great.
Yeah, I think if I may respond to the last questions on corruption and how to deal with the state-owned enterprise, I agree with Leung that you have to have certain core values. And even if you are not a Christian like me, that we believe that we must act justly, do not engage in anything that is illegal, because it will come back to haunt you. And even if you may not get caught, you will not be peaceful, and if that is the case, what's the point? For state-owned enterprise, don't be afraid of them, especially if you're doing a technology startup, because they can't move as fast as you. I asked Jack Ma once, I said, Jack, why is China's IT thriving? And he gave me a very simple answer. Now, maybe I'm kind of misquoting him, so if I misquote him, the responsibility is mine. He said, because the government, they don't know. They don't know what technology is, so that's why we have all the rules. But if you can solve a problem better than your competitors, whether it's state-owned or privately owned, then you can be successful.
Good. So values, integrity, and principle.
Oh.
Yes?
Yes.
Please.
Hi, my name is Sloan Culper, and I'm a PhD student in the Faculty of Medicine. And I have a question for you guys also about China, which is, what would you say are some of the pros and cons of being from outside mainland China that you can bring to the table, but also maybe some things that could hamper you when you go in? So you could talk from experience or from anecdotes that you've heard. What are some kind of lessons that we can learn when we're approaching that market?
Thank you. This side.
Okay, good morning, speakers. My name is Winnie, and I'm an academic staff at the University of Hong Kong. My question is, when I try to get money from the government to do my research, I need to write proposals, and from my experiences, it is always important to show some preliminary results so that to convince the committee that my proposal will be successful. My question is actually for Mr. Cheung Leung. Before you even start your business, when you just have an idea, how can you convince your friends to quit their job? And how can you convince them? How can you convince them to follow you, that your idea will eventually be successful?
Oh, good question. We have lots of star leaders today. Now I'll take 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you. I'm Harry. The thing that I quit my job for 1 year already as well. And also, 1 year ago, I partnered with a program guy to do an app. But actually, within this 1 year, the app haven't been launched yet because still a lot of bugs and a problem, but I'm not a technical guy. So I cannot control everything. Yeah, and I think the most difficult things to control is about the people. Yeah, so as a non-technical guy, and also without any programming skill, so I didn't see any chance for us to see the entrepreneur market. Because saying, if I want to run...
Yeah, got your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So back to you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, if you want to quit your job, it's very easy. Just write something next morning. And people these days tend to also just send a WhatsApp. Just kidding. To me, again, I think it's really your passion and your desire. I believe when there is a will, there's a way. Some of you know that I'm a runner. I run marathons, ultra marathons. I think in those journeys, it's very painful. Okay, so just like writing a proposal, and you have a million questions, people ask you to iterate your proposal a million times, it's very painful. Now, but at the end of the day, it's really whether you want to do it or not, and whether that is the only way or not. I'm sure, we all sit here, all of you very well educated, all of you have the means and ways that you want, and I'm sure if you have the will, you will figure out something that will help you, overcome all these barriers.
Great. And yes, about China and money.
China has money. Well, as a foreigner, to a certain extent, even though we Hong Kong people are Chinese, but we are foreign to that market. So, like anybody foreign to the market, we first have to examine what value do we bring to the market. Likewise, if you're starting a business, the first question that you ask is, what value are you bringing to your customer? And focus on the value. And clearly, there are areas that you may not understand as a so-called foreign entrant to that market. You find partners. To that extent, that when you are starting a business, don't believe that you can single-handedly do everything. So one of the important things of us choosing who to back is whether when you grow, you can find the right partners. And usually you find somebody that can complement you. So in China, you find somebody that probably will understand the market better than you do, but you can bring other things that they may not have, meaning in the China market, that they do not have. So that, I think, is on China. And it applies not just to China, but to almost any market, meaning find out what you can add value that other people cannot add. And that really is something that you can focus on. And then hire people or get partners to somehow cover your weaknesses. One of the things that I've learned throughout my very long, relatively longer working history is you try not to correct people's weaknesses. Obviously, when people are young, we tend to do it, but when they are slightly older, don't spend time correcting their weakness. Rather, focus on their strength, use their strength, and then hire other people to cover their weaknesses. That probably would be my answer on China. I see that Leong has a point to make.
Sorry, if I may. I used to also to be in the private equity field, so I spent a lot of time in China. So if I may add one thing. I think when we go into China, or for that matter, any other market, as Antony said, but China is particularly dynamic. It changes every day. So you don't expect, having a perfect solution and then you go in and kind of, hit the ball out of the park. It just won't happen. Look at Jack Ma, look at Ma Fatang. Nobody did that. So we all went in with an idea. You try to, do it to a certain extent. And then you really have to just learn through the cycle. I think that's how, in a way, you try to hit a market with such a dynamic pace.
Yeah, on China as well. I've done China a few times. I lost 200 million Hong Kong dollar on my first attempt, thanks to the support from the venture capital. I found that in our industry, especially in apps, technology, etc., the basis of competition, especially in a dynamic market like China, is not based on a great idea or an app. It's actually the basis of competition is based on an ecosystem. Pony can attest to that, and obviously Jack. So what I've done last year was I actually had half of my company went through a strategic merger with an Internet Plus player in China because they have the ecosystem that I cannot build overnight or within a short time. I have the products which I think can benefit China. So it is more like what the strategy is. A normal frontal linear thinking to go into China with the dynamism may not be the only answer. Be creative about it. Now, if I'm successful in doing what I was trying to do, I can build a new business model to work with leading second-tier, non-BAT Chinese technology player with a Hong Kong technology startup going into China market and helping them to go global. Now that's the business model I'm trying to prove.
But actually that is not just startups, meaning the ability to change and really steer as the situation changes or when you find new things that may prove your previous business model wrong. Even in the very traditional industries, there was a study by a professor in Harvard. They kind of study companies that are successful and ask them whether they actually have changed the strategy from, say, what they did 10 years ago. They find that only 3% of the companies that are successful stick to their old strategy. Everybody else, 97%, changes as they move along. And that is in a way what Hong Kong and Hong Kong people are best at. In Chinese, it's called 執生, meaning you really react to
it's
the
book
situation.
of change, 易經, not 執生. So we talked about leader, partner, and you know that we have 67 speakers today. They're all hanging around talking to you, and good partners. So look for the right people. With that, I'll take 3 more questions. Yes, gentlemen.
Thank you. My name is Leonard. I also passed 28 already. I also quit my job as well last year. The craziest part is actually I convinced my wife to quit with me at the same time. Yeah, that's some achievement of me. My question is about failure again. I love failure because learning, and I also admire people who actually fail once. I don't trust people that never fail. But that's not the Chinese culture. Chinese people look at your track record. You resume saying that I failed twice, then they actually won't consider you. But you say this is the path, then they will consider you. So we're in this culture, how we survive in this culture, especially not just people like yourself that look at it, but the people around you, like your team, your family, and my wife, for example, is my team. How can we actually embrace this failure idea better? Thank you.
Good question, good question. Yes?
So thank you, speakers, for this awesome sharing, and thanks, Bernadette, for the moderating. My name is Miles, and I'm actually a PhD candidate in electrical engineering. I'm 2 months away from finishing my degree, and I didn't quit my job because I never had a job before. But I threw away a couple of offers from some bigger firms, and I decided I want to do something on my own, because I think that's the way to make technologies happen. I have 2 questions, actually. The first one is, when we talk about failures, but failures are really ambiguous sometimes between failing and not being persistent enough. And how to define that? Let's say, for instance, I give an idea, it didn't work out. Should I push harder or should I try another idea and declare this idea is not going to work? So that's something I've been trying to figure out yet. The second thing is the people tend to say in Silicon Valley that there's the Chinese market and there's the market for the rest of the world. And I figured out, I came back from Berkeley last month and I've been traveling to Shenzhen a couple of times, and I figure it's really different in Shenzhen. And players tend to be really irrational. You never see people fighting with each other, like two startups fighting with each other. They bring in tons of money and not bringing in any revenue, like Uber fighting with the Didi and Kuaidi stuff. You never find it in America, but you do find it in China. And then this sounds really irrational. And if you're a startup, you don't have a big checkbook from some venture capitalist, you're just not going to win it. And what is your take on that? And how do you actually enter from, more of international scale into this China market, which is a little bit scary?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And the gentleman behind you. This is the last question.
Okay, good morning. I'm Eric. I'm studying BBA IBGM in HKU. So my question is very similar. My question is also about the difference between Chinese market and also the international market, because it's very hard for Chinese companies to go international and for the international companies to go into China. So I would like to know more about the war between international market and Chinese market. And for me as a student and for the audience as maybe entrepreneurs, what would you suggest? Should they go to international market first, or should they go to Chinese market first? Because there are quite a lot of difference between them. Yeah.
Wow, great questions. This is more than a tutorial. Thank you. So, 3 minutes for each gentleman to answer all these big questions. I'm intrigued that all of them asked about failure. People like to brag and talk about success, but here we are very frank, and they're really keen on knowing what is really failure and what is honest failure, and you don't want to follow a failed leader. We all want to follow Pony Ma or these gentlemen on stage. So how do you prove that? And they asked the question, Zheng, when you look at a proposal, if they fail too much, you won't give them. Let's be honest. So how do they really get it? So the last words of wisdom, 3 minutes for each.
Well, I think it really goes back to one earlier comment, whether you are in the business or really you have the passion to make things better or solve a problem or offer something that is very different. So whether it should be starting in China first or the Western market first or Hong Kong first, you first ask the question, what are you trying to do? I mean, what problem are you trying to solve? What customer are you trying to serve? So instead of having a blank piece of paper and say, well, let's start a business and try to be successful, because that is not the starting point. Starting point is you usually have a problem and then you keep thinking about improving it. If it's in China, then it's China. If it's in the US, it's in the US. I choose China because I understand China and I believe that I would probably have more value added in China. In China, the technology, the basic research may not be as, or the requirement may not be as strong as in, say, America, where the technology is really, really good. So start with, what are you trying to do? What is your passion? What solution are you trying to provide to what customer? And I think that would probably solve a lot of problems. As to evaluating the incubatees or the ventures that we are trying to back, failure is probably a good thing. But what I would look forward is, look to is, what have you learned from your failure? Are you repeating the same mistakes? Whether it's a failure in your business model, and if it keeps failing in the business model, then chances are you are probably not a very clear thinker. Or whether you fail in the execution. These are the two risks that we usually look to. Business model risk, execution. And by the way, execution is very important. And that's why I talk about having the right partners to help you. So there are all kinds of failure, and we look to what have you learned.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think, to me, the process of quitting my job and doing entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, I think there are a few lessons that I learned I'd like to share. Number one, don't get into a business partnership with your wife. That's just me. That's just me. But seriously, I think number one is when you are taking a startup or a company through a journey, you actually learn a lot about yourself. And there's a lot of temptations in the journey, right? Do you sell early? Do you sell late? Do you grow it bigger? Do you persist? Do you give up? So there's a lot of temptation. I think it's a process also for us to sort of better understand ourselves, which could be quite interesting, frankly, depending on how big a heart you have for yourself. I think the second thing is, to me, again, very, very critical, is how do you build a circle of trust and advisors around you, right? Because you can't be right all the time, but the decisions you make, as an entrepreneur, you have to be responsible for those decisions. Nobody else can help you. But then you still need a group of advisors that you trust, that you can talk to all the time, although the decision still sort of comes back to you at the end of the day. So I think that's the second probably most critical thing for me, sort of know yourself, build a trusted circle that you can rely on. I think the last one is just, be bold, enjoy the journey. You can fail, but, like Antony said, as long as you have picked up something in that journey and reaching your life, then, you don't call it a waste.
Wow. I told you these are three nice gentlemen beside me. We've talked about wives, girlfriends, trust, ambition, dreams, and contribute and make the world better. And I just love these values with them. And I want to say these things before Jason, because he's so good that after he speaks, I don't have to speak anymore.
Totally agreed. I think it's a self-discovery process. I think failure itself is not the focus. The focus is, why did you fail? What was it that you did wrong? Or what was the external factors that you couldn't control that make you fail? And what you do about it, right? I disagree that failure records is not good. Actually, that could be a good thing. Some of the VCs start to look at entrepreneurs, because there are so many startups out there now that had failure records. Of course, they, at the same time, need to have some tractions and some successes. They cannot just have failures, right? But failures would add to these are badges on you. These are life experience that you wouldn't trade anything for, right? So view it that way. Be passionate about things. Now, whether to persevere or not, I think I answered that already. It's basically three questions for me. Number one, whether the failure fundamentally invalidate the idea, the business model, the product, the market. If it is not, then maybe I should continue. Secondly, am I just doing startup, continuing for the startup's sake, for money, for something else, for the wrong reason? Am I solving a problem? Right? Have to be very clear. 要好清晰知道自己做緊乜 although you're lost. Third, just ask yourself, right? Don't be, don't have your wife as business partners, but have your wife as a sounding board, right? What would make you happy? Well, she needs to be on board, girlfriend, wife, whatever. They need to be on board. You cannot fight this alone, right? So I think those are the key thing. Last, if I may, about market, global market versus China market. I don't think it's academic to look at it that way. Hong Kong, since the 50s, the first generation of entrepreneurs, the industrialists, showed us that Hong Kong is the best place that the East meet with the West. So we're destined to do both, and it's possible. Why do we have to choose? It's a matter of how. So that's my view. There's only one market, the global market.
Thank you. I told you we have three charming gentlemen on stage, and you either want to marry them or to follow them and make them your boss. But whichever way, they'll be sticking around today to share views with you, like the other 64 speakers. So let's all share our dreams, and thank you.